Welcome to GEMI and EDF Climate Corps webinar. Of GEMI and EDF, I will thank 2 Degrees Network for hosting this webinar. This being a GEMI webinar and competitors participating on it, I will take a moment to use the GEMI antitrust guidelines as we at the big of all GEMI calls and meetings. On screen, you now see the GEMI antitrust guidelines. Please take a brief moment to review it. Questions of the guidelines, or if an issue is raised or concerned about, feel free to send a note in the chat box to myself or the GEMI's Director, A. Goldman. Global leader in developing insights in environmental sustainability solutions for business. Since GEMI has captured the vision and experience of global corporate environmental, health and safety, and sustainability leaders from diverse business sectors through the development of a wide range of 30+ publicly available tools designed to help companies improve the environment and add business value. All the tools are available for free on our website and may be found on the GEMI Solutions Tool Matrix. In 2008, EDF launched a collaborative tool, the Environmental Defense Fund, tied to successful corporate NGO partnerships, extensive aid to organizing, designing, implementing, and bring the success of corporate NGO partnerships. The guide includes several case examples of successful partnerships. While focus is on environmental projects, we feel the lessons learned can apply to any type of sustainability-driven partnership that helps active engagement between business and NGOs. GEMI membership meetings each year focus on current and emerging sustainability issues and solution tools. GEMI conducts benchmark surveys and member-requested quick surveys. What you see is the 2013 Board of Directors. GEMI member-driven organization that does not conduct any lobby or have any code of conduct guidelines. The Board of Directors is elected annually by the membership. Snapshot of our current member companies. It's a unique niche as environmental sustainability solution providers. There are 3 types of teams to address key issues: work groups, networks, and committees. Develop focused tools from concept to finished product with designated resources. Issues can be brought forward for consideration of the work group formation. Next, discussion groups. Members share company case examples and practices, as well as we have guest speakers who are topic experts. This may serve as a prelude or a proscript to a work group. These work on procedural, administrative, or strategic issues as directed by the board. The coming benchmarking, the board of directors, the senior advisory council. Throughout the year, networks hold webinars for members with case example and speakers. GEMI Solution Tool Matrix as a how-to, where-to solution for professionals seeking guidance on addressing environmental sustainability issues. It is to highlight the value of our diverse portfolio of solution-based tools, serve as a navigational guide to assist companies in their own pursuit of environmental sustainability and EHS excellence. A historical timeline of key environmental-related events and GEMI solution tools use over pop windows to display tool details, associated publications, other resources. And with I would like to use the GEMI Climate Change and Renewable Energy Network Chair, Steve Schroff from Procter & Gamble. Also on the GEMI Board of Directors as the solution to chair. Steve?
Well, I am Steve Schroff. I am with Procter & Gamble. I serve as the GEMI Climate Change and Network and Energy Network Chair, as Neville pointed out. Also on the GEMI Board of Directors, the Tools Work Group Chair. It's my pleasure today to introduce to you our speakers. Three. The first will be Scott Wood, as Reach Coordinator for the Environmental Defense Fund's Corporate Partnership Program. Scott focuses on building lasting relationships with leading companies and organizations through EDF Climate Corps. EDF Climate Corps is an initiative of summer program that taps the talents of tomorrow to save energy, money, and the environment. Next, we have Mike Kaczmarek. He's the Vice President, Corporate Shipbuilding, and has been at Carnival Corporation for 13 years in shipbuilding, port development, research, and development. Mike is actively engaged in a number of environmental and energy savings projects for new builds as well as the existing fleet. Finally, we'll hear from Jen. He works with Union Pacific Railroad in their environmental management group, project manager of utilities management. With Union Pacific for 5 years and worked in different operating positions before joining the environmental group. He graduated with a Bachelor's in Science in Business Marketing at the University of Nebraska and is currently a 2013 Business MBA candidate at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Scott will now share with you more information about EDF's Climate Corps program. Scott?
Thank you, Steve. Let me see if I can advance the slide here. All right. Well, thanks so much, Steve and Neville, and to GEMI and 2 Degrees for organizing and hosting this webinar. And thanks, Mike and Jim, for offering to share your stories about your experiences through the program, and for everyone else on the call for calling in today. So I'm Scott Wood. I work for Environmental Defense Fund's Corporate Partnerships Program. And over the next few minutes, I'd like to introduce you to an innovative program called EDF Climate Corps. First off, in case you're not familiar with Environmental Defense Fund, we're a nonprofit environmental organization. We have about 750,000 members and staff of 400 scientists, economists, engineers, and business professionals. Now, one of the things that makes EDF unique is our 25-year track record of working with leading companies to develop and deploy innovations that improve environmental and business performance. Jumping right into it, I'd like to start off with a question, which is, how familiar are you with this picture? Where you walk the streets of your city or drive by an office park at night, and what you see is that most of the lights are on. And that's truly a classic case of the lights are on, but no one's home. And really, this is just a symbol of how challenging it can be to go as far as you'd like with energy efficiency. We all know that saving energy saves money, which I'm guessing is one of the reasons why you signed up for the call. And many companies actually have very sophisticated programs for evaluating and deploying energy-saving technology. However, what we've come to realize is that a successful energy program is a little bit about technology, but a lot about how people make decisions. And having worked with hundreds of Fortune 1000 companies over the years, we've seen there's a pretty clear set of common barriers that can often stand in the way of smart people making good decisions. As usual, Dilbert nails it, and I'll give you just a moment to read this comic. So I imagine that some of you have experienced something like this in your organizations. And in fact, this is really a very common barrier where organizational structure gets in the way of smart investments. And this is really just one example of the different kinds of very human behaviors that can stand between you and your goals. And what I found is that, to really rev up energy performance, it's vital to understand how these barriers function, and most importantly, how to overcome them. So that's really why we here at EDF created Climate Corps. Energy efficiency is a gold mine, but not everyone has the time or the tools to dig for that goal. So EDF Climate Corps brings you the resource that you're probably yearning for to actually accelerate your energy programs. Now, we've worked with near 200 leading organizations over the last 5 years, ranging from Google to Facebook, to Caterpillar, and Boston City Public Schools to the New York City Housing Authority. And on average, we've found $1 million in potential energy savings for each host organization, including those that have been working on energy efficiency for years. And collectively, this translates to enough energy savings to power 150,000 homes, which is like turning off all of the lights in all of the homes in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So here's how it works. Basically, we first here at EDF go and recruit the best and the brightest graduate students from across the country. In fact, we're actually in the process right now of culling through the more than 500 applicants that we have from top business school students. Take them all in and train them on the fundamentals of energy efficiency and place them in summer fellowships with companies and other large organizations where they work with folks like you to build the business case for energy savings. And so, you can see the program is really powered by this new generation of future leaders who have the skills and the passion to really make a difference. Dedicated energy problem solvers, and they're evolving into tomorrow's leaders in sustainability and energy management. And they're really an invigorating group to be around. So typically, fellows are working to identify and analyze some of the climate efficiency opportunities. So looking at lighting or HVAC, office equipment, and so on, to quantify the investment needed, as well as the economic payback, and really laying out, here's what you do first, here's what you do next, this is what's going to cost you, this is when it will pay back, and these are the financial and environmental benefits. Depending on where you are, though, the fellows can also help to develop energy strategy, help with setting corporate goals, evaluating renewables or other alternative energy sources, assessing energy information systems, developing innovative funding mechanisms, and promoting employee engagement. Really the bottom line is that we at EDF work closely with each organization to come up with a customized plan that addresses your specific needs and opportunities. Since we are currently recruiting organizations for the 2013 Climate Corps program, I wanted to quickly mention some of the basic requirements for anyone on the line who might be interested in hosting a fellow this summer. So first, organizations do pay the fellow's salary and travel expenses to EDF's pre-fellowship training, as well as a post-fellowship network event that we organize. This typically comes out to about $15,000, all said and done. That companies provide a supportive high-level project sponsor and a direct supervisor, and ensure that the fellow has access to whatever relevant records or staff they'll need to interact with to actually perform their work. We just ask that organizations work to implement their fellows' recommendations where feasible, and then report progress to EDF after completion of the program. Those are really, just sort of the basic details about Climate Corps. Applications are available on our website, which you can see at the bottom of the screen here. And I am certainly more than happy to chat with anyone directly in greater detail about what a fellow might be able to do for you this summer. So applications are due by February 28th this year. I would certainly encourage you to consider applying for the program. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to Mike now, who's going to talk about Carnival's experience with the program this past summer. Mike?
Okay, thanks, Mike Kazmarek. And Neville's here with me also. We're going to talk a little bit about the experience that we had last summer with Diana Sanchez. I'll get to her CV in just a moment, but she joined us last summer for about 11 or 12 weeks to take a look at how we could do energy efficiency activities on some of the cruise ships that for Carnival Cruise Lines a little bit more efficiently. We have actually, we're working in the corporate staff here in Miami. And within the corporation, we actually have 10 different cruise companies, one of which is Carnival Cruise Lines. They just happen to be in the same building. And because their ships are actually operating frequently out of Miami nearby, it made it convenient. So both the staff is here co-located with us as well as the ships are nearby. So we use Carnival Cruise Lines for this particular effort. Hannah came to us halfway through her Duke MBA. Maybe she's on this call. I hope so. But she has a background, an academic background in both electrical and electronic engineering from University in Columbia. She, in addition to that, though, and very, very helpful to us, is she has a working experience with General Motors as an engineer in both the electrical and electronics areas, including automation. And that proved to be very, very helpful to us, and I'll talk about that a little bit more over the next few slides. But the idea here in these next slides is that we've just taken a few snapshots of the things she did aboard the ship to give you a general idea of her approach and the kind of products that she was able to develop while she was here, and then we'll leave. Of course, we want to leave some time for questions. She's able to get to learn something about cruise ships since they're only in port for one day or part of one day, and then they're back out at sea. We regrettably send her to sea a couple of times. Once was on the Carnival Imagination, and once on the Carnival Destiny, and in between, was able to visit those ships during port visits in Miami. Both short cruises, but during that process, she was able to meet with all key crew members, and because she went back to the ships many times when the ships were in port, she was able to continue the connection with those crew members and continue to develop her investigations that way, and to earn their trust and confidence also, which is important in this process. And in between those visits to the ships, and in between those short cruises, she was working with the technical staff downstairs, and she was meetings with them, she was getting to know them, and the more she was on the ships, the more questions she had for the shore staff, and vice versa. The more that she worked with the shore staff, the more informed she was for her nexus to the ship. So they were complementary activities in this case. So in the end, she produced a white paper, but in addition to that, she produced an extensive PowerPoint presentation, which is very useful tool, I think. And at the end, she briefed senior management up to the senior vice president level in Carnival Cruise Lines, and many layers in between. Just a snapshot of some of her product here. We had a fairly broad remit, but we were able to narrow that down very quickly, I think. Once she started speaking to people, we were able to narrow it down into three areas that we wanted to focus her attention on. One was air conditioning, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system on board the ships. The other was Galley, and then the third was lighting. We knew there were savings to be made in all of those. We knew we had large capital-intensive programs in all of those areas, but what we did have, and what we was able to fill in some of the missing gaps with, is we didn't have that really crew level activity and crew level engagement, and to the extent that we wanted. And she could come in with a third-party perspective, from an outside perspective, along with her own work experience. And by the way, doing much the same things with General Motors in Columbia, and then bring that additional perspective to us, which we found to be invaluable. So the idea of her summary slide page for the air conditioning system. It is the second highest energy consumer on board a ship after the propulsion system on a cruise ship. And it made some things which seem very simple and straightforward technology and operational practice improvement recommendations. But, you know, there really is a very long list that these things were refined down to over time. And so everything she has here is not based on theory, but it's based on experience, and it's also based on her investigation, her interaction with the crew and with the staff. She's also spent some time in the engine control room, working with the engineers on duty, both at sea and in port. And then with them, she was able to understand better how they were using the tools that they did have, and then to make some suggestions to us on how they might be able to get more of the existing tools that were already on board. In this case, it's energy save mode for the air conditioning system, which allows the fans to act on a variable demand basis rather than an on-off basis. And again, she found lots of little things, as you're going to find everywhere, and this is just a snapshot of some of her calculations. This is very conservative, and in fact, we think that really the per ship on a per ship basis is probably multiple times this. But we wanted to be conservative, and she wanted to base this her comments and her estimates based on only the things that she was able to see herself on the few ships that she was able to visit. You know, everyone knows about lighting, and everyone knows about the advantages of LED, and everyone knows that you can use light sensors. You can use different kinds of sensors to be able to help you in measuring your lighting, as was mentioned a few moments ago. And she was able to do it, though, take it to a step in a rudimentary analysis in this particular case, but she was able to do a little bit of analysis, and she was able to also integrate that with the crew participation would be in additional crew training, awareness, and involvement. So able to incorporate those things, and the benefits are significant. This is one final summary slide that she used. There's some others that were more technical, but in this particular one, she brings out some key points, and one is measurement. Measurement being it's important to understand where your baseline is. It's important to measure how you're doing, and so not only can you determine where you're going and what giant leaps of progress, but really day-to-day basis, you can then employees be aware of what the progress and what the impact of their actions is going to be. And of course, we can all benefit from more effective communication, including training and awareness on the part of crews. You know, with us, we often have a very transient crew situation, particularly at more junior levels, as do people in many industries. And so, the awareness and crew training becomes even more critically important. And they also recommended reward and recognition, which is, I guess, something that she learned in Columbia, because we don't to the extent that she suggested, but it made us think twice about it and take some initiatives and start some programs in that area. And that completes our presentation. So, are we in questions now, Neville, or later?
No, one thing later.
So, Amy, do you have any questions? Or
This is Brandon with UP. I think maybe we'll going to wait to the end and then take questions. Good.
Okay, with me.
Okay. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Jim Brandon. I am the manager of utility management at Union Pacific Railroad out of Omaha, Nebraska. Headquartered. And 2012 was our second year participating with the EDF Climate Corps program. In 2013, we'll also be participating in the program as well. So just as far as I just wanted to give you a snapshot of our 2011 fellowship program and some of those results that came from that, and also kind of get an idea of how we shifted our focus from the first year that we participated to the second year, and kind of give you the idea of how it's really important. And I guess for us, one of the biggest attributes of this fellowship or this program is how we're able to build on each year's findings and recommendations. 2011 fellow, we actually had one focus. His name is actually Greg Zielinski. He came to us from MIT Sloan's MBA program, and he had a background in the military. But this is our first year participating, so we were kind of new in the realm of energy management from energy conservation standpoint. We were very versed in the data. We're very versed in the engagement piece, but this really, I guess, lifted us to that next level as far as management and building, and then also that engagement piece. But our main focus for the 2011 was to rethink electricity management as part of Union Pacific's overall approach to secondary energy. Below, just a couple examples of what Greg was able to do with some of the data. So the pie chart on the left is a breakdown of how we spend electricity dollars inside our rail yards. And he's taken that and put it into a dashboard that all employees across the entire network can use inside of our internal online site by yard. So the field personnel out in those yards can actually look at the down and say, okay, well, I think our time would be spent here. So it's a general breakdown of our spend inside our rail yards. And then one more thing is very important to me that came from Greg Zielinski's 2011 fellow was that typically at the end of their fellows they will present to our COO, and one of the recommendations was for him to actually create my position. So I actually began in this position as the energy manager in January of 2012, so I'm very grateful in that sense as well. So to the 2012 fellow, our fellow for 2012 was Joe Martin. He also came to us from MIT's Sloan MBA program, and he also had a background in the military, specifically the Navy. So we shifted this year, building on the prior years, we shifted in 2012 to focus on three main areas of energy. And we actually broke those down by percentage. So the highest percentage of his time we wanted him to spend on compressed air, specifically standard maintenance purchasing, and then also training with our personnel at our yards. Second percentage, as far as time spent, facilities management, that's prioritizing energy efficiency opportunities and finding those low-cost, no-cost ideas, solutions, whether it be in facilities or just in some of our smaller facilities to larger facilities. And compressed natural gas, specifically conversion of our vehicles, so actually looking to converting them into a compressed natural gas fuel source. So just getting a little bit deeper into each three of his focuses, letting you know maybe a little bit about what he did and then some of his results. So actually on the job, he right away formed a team of 30 Union Pacific employees, and he broke these teams into a task team and then an oversight team. The task team was that were actually hands-on with the compressors using the compressed air, and then the oversight team was here in Omaha. Mainly consisted of our senior management and the director levels, providing feedback to Joe and what he was doing. And he worked with our outside experts, both with the company and outside the company, using past audits, things of that nature. And then, of course, he did a couple site visits, visited a few locations, a few cities out in California, and a couple in Chicago to get the info he needed as far as recommendations at the end of his 12 weeks here at UP. Some of the results, he developed a Compressor 1 training deck, and he actually presented that to a fairly large group. I want to say maybe 40 to 50 people in 3 blocks across the network. So we actually were able to listen in on that. It was very, very useful for us as far as employee engagement. But I continue to use this in my travels as far as employee engagement and increasing that awareness of how much energy spend we use, or I guess we're spending on energy when it comes to our compressors. 2 other things, he developed a maintenance program and then also a purchasing checklist. And these both help us make, I guess, the best business sense of any decision we're making, whether it be, purchase a compressor or actually building a system out in our yard. And just give you an idea of how we were able to build. So if you remember the slide I showed you, we broke it down by spend. He actually took it further and broke the compressor piece, each piece of how we use our compressors. We use them in these ways. So you see the hump yard. So that's actually, the hump yard is actually a hump that our rail cars go over, and we compress air to activate the blenders that actually slow down the rail cars before they get into their classification tracks. Yard air, we actually perform air brake tests. Shop air, we use them for impact tools. RIP track is repair in place, so that's RP track. I also use that for tools, air brakes as well. And then WWTP is just our wastewater treatment plant. So those were our 5 locations that we actually use the air. And with Joe's analysis, we were able to zero in on that yard air piece being the biggest piece, and it's where we focus as far as our maintenance program is concerned. So since Joe's left, we were actually able to take his recommendations from paper form and build a database on that. Currently, I have about 75 of our compressors inventoried in the database, and 30+ locations actually logging maintenance records for their compressors. So that is helping us increase our efficiency as far as train operations, but it's also extending the life of the equipment. So it's very useful. Into the facility management piece, this is just a couple examples I want to show you. So one great thing coming from the EDF Climate Corps is that they offer them, or the training beforehand, they give them the tools and the knowledge they need to really the best of their ability. And the target is actually using some of the tools that they were able to give them as far as rebates across the network. And the target was the number of states that we typically want to focus on with regards to energy conservation projects. So he actually took the electricity spend for those locations and mirrored, I guess, the availability of rebates for that particular location as well, and that's what's giving that target the best opportunity. The right caption is actually a snapshot of a paper. I guess it's a note for our vending machines. So he recommended that we turn off all the in our vending machines because it really serves no purpose outside of aesthetics. But he does an estimated about $30,000 just by talking with our vendors and getting these vending machines across our entire network, getting lights either turned off or deactivated, and then throwing this sign up on those. Also, a good savings for that, but also we're increasing employee engagement, which is the most important of it all. The least amount of his time that he focused on was compressed natural gas. So you can kind of take a look at the left here. So he did his research. He actually looked at the infrastructure of natural gas and his recommendations. So he recommended that we convert 2 of our trucks to dual capability natural gas and diesel. Since Joe's departure, since Joe's went back to MIT to finish his MBA, we were able to pilot this in one truck, and we are analyzing the results of that right now. So that was also a great success. With that, nothing else, but I just wanted to say thank you to EDF and GEMI, and so appreciate it. And if you have any questions, I think it was the time.
If you have any questions, this is Steve Shedroff again. Any questions, please use the Q&A pane or the chat pane to send us a message, and we'll be glad to ask your question of the panel that we have here. I've already one question, and this is directed at Carnival. So, Mike, the question is towards energy efficiency and other similar savings. I think there's perception out there that folks that participate in cruises are among the elite, and do they really care about savings? And kind of counter to their, is there a trade-off in quality of service when you have to look at energy savings and other things to try to help support the business?
Yeah, this is first of all, I think that as far as elite is concerned, people that go on cruises run the full gamut of society, quite frankly, and they really are not engaged so much in this. I think that our challenge is to do the savings without impacting the customer or the customer experience. And so really for us, it's more of about coming up with technology, techniques, and awareness training for crew, and setting the right kinds of goals, and evaluating where we are, and then being able to lay out plans on how to get better. But I think that the impact is that is beyond on the ship and on the amount of energy we use and amount of fuel we have to buy, but it should really be no impact on the guest.
Good, thank you, Mike. I think we'll go ahead and ask Jim. What is it about the fellows' particular skill set that make them valuable to your company?
It's a number of things. The first thing that comes to mind is just their ability to work with teams, and how many people, especially at Union Pacific with 40,000, 45,000 plus employees across our network, their ability to work in teams and reach out to a number of different people, and even find those people that we didn't know were engaged before. So that's one example. But then you have your past experience as far as Martin was concerned. He came from a Navy background and worked on the submarines. And on those submarines, they had extensive hands-on training and hands-on process orientation with regards to air compressors. So that really perked our interests. But again, I can't stress enough how important the engagement part for us with Craig and Joe, and I look forward to 2013.
All right, great, thank you. Good answer. We do have a little over 10 minutes for questions, so if you do have a question, please go ahead and put it into the chat window, and we can answer it for you. Not getting it off, so I'll throw out another question. So either Jim or Mike, once you submitted your application to EDF and talked about your work plan with the EDF staff, how did you prepare for the fellows' arrival? And how did you make the most of the skills once they arrived?
Mike, did I get that first? I didn't know if you... So the first year, like I mentioned, my job came from the first year's fellow, but the second year, and then also what we're planning for 2013, it's just a matter of how prepared you want them to be with their focus. So what do you provide them? Do you want to, for example, with solar, which is going to be one of our focuses for 2013, do you want to have something ready for him? Do you want to have a vendor recommendation already set for him to review so that he can take that and run? Or do you want him to start from scratch so that he's, I guess, looking at every aspect of the project from an unbiased standpoint as far as him not being a UP employee? So I think it's just a matter of your preference in my mind. Mike, if you wanted to.
Neville, would like to add one or two things. Neville,
Yeah, there's one thing that I learned being a third year was that he started engagement with the fellow beforehand, just to give them an idea as to which what areas we were looking at, so they could enhance their knowledge in that area. And the second key thing I think was the first week we spent a lot of time meeting with all the key participants in this project and people who had the information and who could provide the information, and that kind of helped her to build the relationships and gain that trust. So that I believe was key to moving ahead quickly.
Yeah, and I'll add one thing to that, which is a corollary to Neville's second point, and that is that in advance we went out to ensure that we had buy-in from that particular cruise company and from their senior management, because we were going to be moving Diana around between ships and speaking to a lot of people in the company, and we wanted to make sure that they were on board in advance.
All right, great. Thank you. We do have a question from one of the listeners. As a large company, how did you deal with, management is typically a little reluctant to partner with some of the NGOs. I go about saying that to management, and how did you overcome some of the business concerns of partnering with an NGO? And feel free to jump in with the EDF side of that too.
Yeah, this is Mike. Maybe I'll go first, and then Jim, I'm sure, will have something. I think it's a non-issue, quite frankly. We were looking at a fellow or intern. We were looking at Diana as a resource that would help us in a particular project area that we had an interest in. So I really think it was not an issue.
Yeah, this is Jim. I would definitely agree with that. I've probably already said it 3 or 4 times, but I mean, trying to legitimize partner with an NGO, especially EDF and their defense fund, they just that you're getting someone from one of these top tier schools with a clean slate as far as their knowledge with the industry they're coming into, and then just that piece like that I've been mentioning is just the engagement and the communication that they have with those employees out in the field, and what we learn from what's all out there and what we can build on. So I think it was just a really easy decision for us.
And to follow on to that, Scott, how does the EDF deal with that from your side? What kind of, marketing do you do to alleviate some of that kind of fear from industry?
Yeah, sure. So, I think one of the, the key points is just to take a look at the list of organizations who have partnered with us on this program in the past, which is almost 200 strong, and many leading Fortune 500 companies. Beyond, we are very careful about, the way we communicate about the program and maintaining confidentiality with the organizations that host fellows over the summer. So that's something I didn't mention during my portion of the presentation, but basically, by signing on to the program, what an organization agrees to is just that they're listed as a host organization, and we include any of the identified savings in an aggregate number that we report out at the end of the year for all of the fellows. So anything more specific than that about a participating company, we would certainly require written consent from the company to publicize. So, in working with, the number of companies that we have in the past, we've certainly recognized the sensitivity around how we're publicizing the program and communicating And so we're very careful with the way that we do that so that we are able to alleviate those concerns.
I've got another question for you, Scott. Host organizations have access to the networks of other companies that are involved and some of the other fellows. I mean, is there any kind of network where they all get together and discuss either results or topics?
There is actually. So we maintain a network of all of the past and current host organizations, as well as all of the alumni fellows of the program and current fellows of the program. And so we have an active LinkedIn group where there's a lot of collaboration and dialogue. We also host an annual network event, which is a day in-person meeting with, again, where we invite all of the representatives from the host organizations as well as fellows to really come together and discuss topics like, what are the, some of the large, most common organizational barriers that companies and organizations are facing to actually implementing and these energy efficiency savings, and what are some of the common practices or leading practices, I should say, that companies are seeing and being effective in overcoming those barriers. And so it's really an active two-day discussion roundtables where companies of similar industries or that are similar geographically are able to actually have active discussions around those types of topics. I think it's really one of the benefits of the program that we tend not to talk too much about in presentations like these, but it is really a pretty big value to the program in terms of sharing ideas and learning from others that are out there. So it is quite an active network and something that all of our host organizations have access to.
Okay, it sounds like there's benefits beyond just getting your fellow and that work done. Great, thank you. Remind you still can submit a question. We've got about 5 minutes left. I've got one more here. Jim and Mike, so if this program didn't exist, what was replaced? How would you have gone about doing what you did, and what do you think it would have taken, and what's the value for this?
This is Jim. Tough one to answer. There is a company like, or even a program like the Climate Corps that exists. I would have to answer no. So I don't think that we would be even close to where we are today as far as results we've gained from participating.
Yes, Mike. For us, we probably wouldn't have looked at this particular area at this particular time because we just didn't have an available resource to do it. So the fact that Diana was here and available, I think, allowed us to look at something that we would have probably just postponed otherwise.
All right, great, thank you. I think I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll wrap up. I think you've answered the questions I have listed here, so I'm looking for a tough one, okay?
So while you're looking, I would say one other comment, and that is that related to the skills of the fellow that you send, I think that to a certain extent we have just adjusted the tasks according to the skills and the background of the fellow, and so I don't think that they all have to have the same background as the two fellows that you've heard mentioned in the two presentations today necessarily.
Well, that's a great question for. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to tack on to that. This is Scott with EDF. One of the things that we do is work closely with each host organization to really understand what are the projects that you're interested in having a fellow work on, and understanding what the background or skill set of someone that would be effective on those projects would look like, and then we're able to take that knowledge and go to our pool of applicants to really go fishing for someone who has the the background, the skill set, the interest in working on that type of project. And we set up a conversation between who we feel is the best match for you, where you're able to get to know another, discuss the project a bit, and then make a final decision on if you're comfortable moving forward with that selected candidate. We do make a concerted effort to really match someone up well with you based on what the specific project is.
All right, you answered the question I was about to ask, so that's good. So it sounds EDF plays the role of matchmaker, trying to find the right needs with the right skill set of the applicants for fellows. That's great. I think that with that we can wrap up, and I turn it back over to Scott or Lucinda. I'm not even sure.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, great.
Great. So that brings us to the end of today's session. I'd like to apologise again for the technical difficulties we experienced at the start. Sorry about that. And I'd like to thank you all for joining today and for your questions and comments. And a special thanks to all of our speakers for their great presentations. I'm posting the speaker slides and also the recording of the webinar on 2 Degrees probably tomorrow morning, and I'll send that link out to you by email. And until then, have a great evening, and I look forward to seeing you in another webinar soon.
Thanks. Neville out.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Good questions.